Hey listeners, welcome to Straight Wife Trans Life. I'm Lisa, and it is confession time. Before my husband came out as transgender, I had never sat down with a therapist or participated in a support group. Now we are a year into her transition, and I've benefited from both. And if I had known how helpful therapy would be, I would have signed up a lot sooner. I think all of us could use professional third-party insight. I grew up with that stigma of, ew, normal people don't get therapy. And I wish that wasn't the case, but I'm really glad that society is slowly getting over that mental health stigma, and we are more open to discussing how therapy can be helpful. And that's today's goal. Let's talk therapy and support groups for spouses or partners of a transgender person. When my husband disclosed to me that he was transgender, he asked that we hold off sharing the news with anyone until he told his parents. And I respected his wishes because I'm not a monster. The downside was that now I was stuck with this invisible, gigantic 3-ton elephant on my shoulder that I couldn't tell anyone close to us about. But I knew I needed to talk to someone. Enter therapy and support groups. Let's start with support groups. There are therapist-led support groups, which I don't know much about because I've only joined peer-led support groups. Peer-led groups are group meetings led by people who are going through or have gone through a similar situation. All meetings are private, there are guidelines, and you will need to connect with the organization for access. Join a meeting and give it more than one try because different people join when their schedules allow, and no two meetings are the same. You may eventually meet someone in a very similar situation who you can develop a friendship with or just check in with outside of the meetings. And it might not be how you thought you would make a new friend or acquaintance, but it is really nice to go through the various ups and downs of a partner transitioning, knowing that you can lean on each other when you need to vent or share positive news. I've met wonderful people through support groups and a few that I speak with outside of the group. That said, you can also join and listen if you prefer. You don't have to make friends with anyone. It can simply be comforting to hear that you're not alone. Support groups are typically held once a month, and all of my support group meetings have been via Zoom, mainly due to the pandemic. But on the positive side, you'll meet people from a lot of different places. You may also be able to find local meetings that are held in person. A fantastic organization that I love is called PFLAG, and they offer support meetings across the U.S. and internationally. Their website is pflag.org. PFLAG shortened its name from Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, and I'll share the website link on the episode description. Another helpful place for support groups and resources is ourpath.org. That is OURPATH. And they have group meetings for spouses or partners of people who've come out as gay or lesbian, and separate meetings for partners of transgender people. Make sure that if you contact them, you ask to be connected to a person or the meeting that fits your situation best. There are also smaller, more local organizations that you may have to do a little digging to find, but several offer support meetings that can be in person or virtual, and some even offer weekly meetings. So a few examples. There's one in Berkeley, California called the Pacific Center for Human Growth, and there's another really well-established center called the Ingersoll Gender Center in Seattle, Washington. And here's a tip. If you are looking for local support groups, try adding terms to your online search like Gender Center or SOFA. And it's almost spelled like sofa, but with 2 F's. So that's SOFFA, and it stands for Significant Others, Friends, Family, and Allies. So try searching SOFA transgender support groups. And if you are part of a lesbian or gay couple, or you are non-binary and your wife, husband, or partner is transitioning, just know that there are meetings where you will meet others in similar situations. I have been in support meetings where most people were not just heterosexual or cisgender couples. Here is my biggest tip from experience for peer-led support groups. Shop around. I say that because sometimes the group might not feel right, and it may take time to find that group that sort of feels like the best fit for you, or like you found your people. So my support group journey was a bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I tried a few times with one group and it felt too angry. And then I tried with another group and it felt too unrelatable. And then I found a forum that was all women who had gay or bisexual spouses, and they were making it work. And I thought, okay, I'm getting warmer because I'm trying to make it work. And in that group, someone who read my intro blurb suggested a support group that she was also part of. And ironically, someone I met from a different group mentioned that same meeting. And I am so happy that they did, because it turned out to be the meeting that is just right. So shop around, give different meetings a try, and you will find a group that just feels like it clicks. Now, shifting gears to therapy, that professional third-party insight I mentioned. This gets a little heavier because the shock, the anger, and the fear, even the love that may initially feel overwhelming when a spouse or partner comes out is extremely intense. For instance, I felt happy and supportive that my husband was taking a step toward being this person he has always felt was inside. Like, how can I not be supportive? But then there was this other side of me that felt almost transphobic, and that was confusing. I was hurt and I was upset, and I didn't understand why. Because I had a gay housemate right out of college, and we went to gay clubs together. I have friends and acquaintances that cover every letter of the LGBTQ plus, except for the T. This is the first. And if I can love and stand up for everyone else who is part of the LGBTQ plus community, I didn't understand why I was having such a difficult time getting on board with my spouse. I mean, there are a lot of obvious reasons. Like, I married a man, and now she was transforming before my eyes. And this isn't stuff that a peer-to-peer group can really fix or help with. You really need to bring in the professionals, the therapists, to help you sort through this giant pile of raw emotion and help draw out the steps or the conclusions that will move you forward. And I cannot recommend enough finding one therapist for you, one for your transitioning spouse or partner, and one to work with as a couple. It sounds like a lot, but therapy does not have to be forever. Having your own therapist allows you to freely discuss the painful and the terrifying, confusing pieces of this transition that you might be hesitant to bring up with your partner, or that frankly you don't want or need to bring up. And your spouse or partner will need a therapist because this is a huge endeavor for them. Not to mention the fear that they have, telling people, the fear of just trying to live a normal life in the body that they feel was meant for them. And sadly, a lot of the fear that somebody who is transitioning is going through is society-based, from all the hate that is out there. Then there is a couples therapist. I feel like seeing a couples therapist is key for anyone in this situation. Because even if you both know you are headed to divorce, a therapist can help make it a more pleasant departure. And maybe you end up as friends when all is said and done. And a therapist can sort of help you reach that point. In my case, our couples therapist allows us to work through the transition as a team and tackle the more difficult conversations and topics. And also helps sew up some of the rips and holes that occur along the way. But 2 really important checklist items before you dive into therapy post-disclosure. The first one is to please find a therapist who has experience working with transgender people or the LGBTQ plus community. All 3 of the therapists that we work with have that knowledge. And if you feel like your therapist isn't quite right for you, just keep looking. You will find one, or 2, or 3. And number 2, make sure your therapist accepts your insurance. Therapy does have a price tag, and it adds up if it's not covered. But don't give up if you don't have enough or any coverage. Many therapists don't even take insurance. Some have sliding pay scales, and then maybe you can go once a month versus 2, and talk to others, like your support group or the organization tied to your support group. They may have a solution that you didn't even think about or know about. And where does one find a therapist? I told my husband, this is your transition. You find the couples therapist. And he did. He found a great one in our area. And I was surprised to learn where our therapist was found. Wait for it. On the Psychology Today website, which I will, of course, link also. The site has a tab that reads, Find a Therapist. She's lovely, and I have to say, well done to my spouse. And to be clear, nobody is paying me for any of this info. I'm just simply telling you how we found her and how I found some resources. I found my own therapist through my insurance website, which also has a tab to find a therapist. But you will need to be patient. We went through a list of therapists. Some were too busy, some stopped taking insurance, some didn't even feel right. But in the end, we found support, and it has made an incredibly positive impact. We started out weekly, then bi-weekly, and now we are moving into the once-a-month range. But that took a year. We really needed weekly when we started out. I think that covers it for today. I hope that you now feel like you have a little toolkit to get you started with resources for support groups and therapy. I am also always learning about new resources since I'm still new on this journey myself. And next episode, I'm going to tackle how to cope between these support meetings and therapy sessions, because it can feel really heavy, just intense. Those early days post-disclosure, you kind of have to figure out how am I going to move forward as things change? Like, how do I take care of myself? So we'll talk about that next time, and I hope you'll join me.